Rebel religion and the news.
All right, here we go. Good morning, everybody. Jerry O. Lennon, along with Alfredo Romero of Rock of Life Fellowship and Bishop Peter Hansen of St. Augustine Anglican Church in downtown Chico. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you two men.
Hey, good morning.
Jerry. You know what? This past Sunday was, I don't think it was the first full Sunday of the NFL. I think it was the second, but It was an important Sunday because the 49ers played a game at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, and people were located in Northern California, a lot of 49er fans, and I'm kind of curious whether this is the kind of thing that happens that affects church attendance. Alfredo, you've told me in years past that this does affect your attendance at Rock of Life.
Yeah, absolutely. Every football season, our services are at 10 a.m. We only have one service right now. But every time that there is a football game on, especially the 49ers, at 10 o'clock, there's a definite drop in attendance. I'd say a good 15%, 20%.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that if we have 120, 30 people, I can definitely say, oh, I remember, okay, I know that person, I know that person there. And they're pretty truthful. Hey, we were going to tape it, but we had a problem with the machine or whatever. We stayed home.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Bishop?
Yeah, I have seen it drop, not necessarily this last Sunday, but, our constituency is not all that football-y, but yeah, at times I've noticed a definite lacking. And if I preach on the football, I know I'm probably preaching to the wrong choir because those are the people who wouldn't get it.
I think we kind of make light of it. I think I did just in my introduction here, but it's actually a serious matter when people put things like a football game ahead of going to church. And so even though we kind of smile about it and wink and nod, I think it's an important thing that we should probably talk to our congregants about to say, listen, we're more important than an NFL football game.
What is the significance of professional sports in a society anyway, exactly? And I am not complaining. I think it's good to get off politics once in a while.
Yeah.
Or other subject matter. But you look at the proportion. Our religion page here in Chico, in the Chico Enterprise Record, is one page a week. And it announces the sermon topics and a couple little things, maybe a piece of news, and that's it. One a week. Every day in the newspaper is like 7 pages of sports news. It's bigger than the national news in our particular paper. It is obviously a focus of a lot of people, and they live and breathe what their team is doing. I just think it's interesting.
You know what's interesting, too? I think it was one of the commissioners. I think it was... is Roger Goodell still? I don't think he's the commissioner of the league anymore. I've lost track of who it is. But I
think it is.
One of the commissioners said that the NFL now owns Sunday, and he said it as being funny that we now own Sunday. God used to own Sunday.
Yikes.
Well, that's sort of like John Lennon saying we're more popular than Jesus.
And the NFL. For many people, is more popular than Jesus.
Well, they got more money than the church at this point.
Yeah.
The money being thrown around in national sports, either Major League Football or Major League Baseball or NFL, is big. It's unthinkably big. When you got a single player making $50 million deals, that's just the cream. It's a lot of money.
A lot of money. Roger Goodell, I'm just Googling it real quick. He's still the commissioner.
Still the commissioner.
My issue is when I see a wife, mom walk in without her husband on a Sunday when there's a game on. I know. I know. And I'll walk. I have a pretty good relationship with almost everybody in my church. I can walk up and go, man, that's why God, he created DVRs. You could have just DVR'd. Oh, yeah, but then they're pretty truthful. Yeah, but then, I'd be walking out and somebody will say, man, I was listening to the game and they're going to spoil it for me. I just stayed home.
Is there anything wrong with kind of acquiescing in some small way to the game? Just hear me out. No. I know the answer is going to be no, and I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just throwing out an idea, saying, okay, we're going to make sure we get you out so you're there by halftime. The first half is going to take about an hour and 20 minutes. It starts at 10. We're going to get you out of there at 11, and we're going to start on the clock at 10. We're out at 11. The benediction, You know, is it 10:59? You're out the door at 11. You're home by 11:15. You watch the full second half. Is there anything wrong with? I know the answer is going to be. Would that be such of a terrible thing?
Well, not only would it of course, be morally slicing things, but it won't work anyway. That would be even my final word on it. It's not going to work. Yeah. It isn't that at 10 o'clock they start watching the game. If it's a 1 o'clock game, we'll be missing people because they are actually working on their
the chips and the dips,
and
the steak and the barbecue.
It's a whole ritual.
Yeah, it's a whole production.
They're doing a big deal. They got a tailgate thing going on. So
yeah, biblically God says, look, don't forsake the gathering together of the church, right? And I believe that you do have to show God He's number one in everything that you do. And I did have a problem. I would say there was a point in my life where music was my God. I would definitely spend more time with music and writing and performing and singing and all that, and 10 times more, 100 times more I ever spent opening the Bible or going to church. The music at that point was my God. And we have to, God says if He could trust us with a little bit, He can trust us with a lot. And He has to be able to trust me with little things. So, and going to church is a big thing.
You know what I think, too? I think there's some men, and I may have been one of those years ago, not so much now, who would have thought, all right, I'm going to sacrifice the game to go to church, and God will give me credit. No, He won't, really. That is misconception, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, He's not going to go and say, boy, that Jerry, he sacrificed watching his favorite football team to go to church and worship me.
Well,
yes, he gets brownie points. I don't think he thinks that way.
In particular cases, I suppose if it really meant that much to you, and you said, I'm going to shift my focus, and I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to spend time with God, I think He'd notice.
Okay, good.
I think He'd notice and give you a point. Not that you're going to buy Him off.
Yeah.
But if it really meant that much to you, if it was killing your faith because you really were consumed by it, you had your fantasy football league, and you're keeping cards, and
Yeah.
Oh no.
God calls going to church and putting Him first and doing good things for Him. He calls that reasonable service. It's in Romans 12. I was looking it up real quick. It's our reasonable service to put God first. We're not doing anything extra. There's no extra credit. It's just that's what He requires of us. Just Lord, you come first in all things. That's your reasonable service. So anyway.
Well, and it says make yourself a living sacrifice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's your reasonable service. A living sacrifice is a pretty serious thing.
Yeah.
Guys can be martyred and they die and it's over pretty quickly. But our living martyrdom means we die to ourselves.
Yeah. Give up the things of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. While we're on the topic of football,
yes.
you have a special issue that you want to deal with.
I want a grievance.
He has a grievance. This is the airing of grievances. Pastor Alfredo, go right ahead and air your grievance.
My brother-in-law too, because he is his favorite team.
Well, I'll tell you. Let me give you some background. If you don't know, I'm Native American. My dad's Apache Indian, and I'm obviously Apache. And you can tell by looking at me. I think I was born off a reservation in New Mexico, a little town called Belen, and I'm pretty proud of my Native American heritage. Mm-hmm. So I would tell you that I'm upset, and the reason why I'm upset, there's a story that just came out this week. The descendants of John Two Guns Whitecalf. He's basically the Native American that was actually the representation of the Washington Redskins emblem. He was the Indian, the profile. He's also, if you don't know, he was also the image on the Indian head nickel.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Same guy.
Looks very much.
John Two Guns Whitecalf. Well, his descendants have always been upset that the Redskins changed their name because of political pressure, and they changed the name of the Washington Redskins to the Commanders, which makes no sense.
No.
But I will tell you, as a Native American, I'm pretty on top of this stuff. Most of the Native Americans that I've ever come across, and I also look at some of the websites for some of the groups and the affiliations of Native Americans, they're upset of the changing of high school mascots. They get rid of the Chiefs, the Indians, the Braves, the Redskins. They get rid of all of them. They even renamed Squaw Valley to Palisades. And squaw is actually, it's an Indian term. It was never a white person's, if I can use that phrase, a derogatory, although some people will claim it is. Unfortunately, and I'm going to say this very sensitively because I watch a lot of Native American videos of representations of people who are upset about, because it takes away from the Indian heritage. It takes away from the history of a Native American. And so nobody ever mentions this Native American, John Two Guns Whitecalf. Nobody mentions anymore because they took away his image. They used to have merchandise and historical teachings on it. And I'm just going to say this very sensitively. Most of the people that complain about this are not Native American.
Right.
They're political Caucasians.
Well, my contribution to this discussion is that if one sports franchise wanted to name its team Fat Lazy White Guys, I'd be fine with it. It wouldn't bother me in the least. Okay, you can call your team the Lazy Fat White Guys, and I wouldn't be offended, even though you're talking about me. I don't understand why. I think it's I do kind of understand. I mean, I don't understand Indians and Braves, the Seminoles, but the Redskins doesn't that sound kind of very racist?
It's not derogatory. If you know the history of the reason why they called us Redskins, is because it was a phrase. If you look at Western, the Southwestern Native Americans, Apaches, Comanches, we painted our faces. I have an image of my father in his Indian basically regala or his suit, basically, and his face is painted. They called us that because we would paint our faces red or black. And that's how we got called Redskins, because it was actually a Redskin. Most of Native Americans have no problem with this because we called ourselves this. And so it's always upsetting to me. First of all, the reason why it's Indian, a lot of people complained about it because apparently the historical references, Columbus thought he landed in the West Indies and called us Indians, and so then we were called Native Americans, and now I've heard I'm not supposed to call myself Native American anymore. I'm supposed to call myself an indigenous person. This is not originating from the Native American people.
No.
It is not. So
I'll tell you, one of the proudest things I have about my father, and he was an Emmy Award-winning actor.
Hold on to that thought.
Yeah.
We've got a break.
Come right back to this.
We'll come right back to this. We're talking about sports mascots. By the way, the Cleveland Indians in the Major League Baseball, they're now the Guardians.
whatever.
Yeah, whatever. We'll be right back after the short break.
Rebel religion in the news. Rebel religion in the news.
All right, welcome back. We're talking about sports mascots, and Alfredo here, Pastor Alfredo, has a real problem with it. He's indigenous. Is that what we're calling you now?
I'm supposed to call myself indigenous. I can't even call myself
Native American, Indian, whatever you
Peoples.
prefer. Yes.
Apache heritage.
And you're upset that the Redskins mascot was changed to the Commanders?
Commanders, yeah.
Or the Commodores.
That was Lionel Richie. By the way, referencing, I know we want to get back to Bishop Peter Hansen real quick, but I do want to mention that there was a rap group called the Fat Boys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not fat, but okay. So what were you going to say right before the break?
Well, I think that the Indian background of our nation, of our geographical nation, is a fascinating thing, and it's something I think of which we are all proud.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting, fascinating, and my dad was an actor. He was in movies, and he was in a movie called The Savage, starring Charlton Heston, and a female lead. Charlton Heston, my dad, and the female lead all got chosen by. They were on location in South Dakota, and did this. It was a movie about when this white man was taken as a baby into an Indian tribe and grew up as an Indian, thought he was, and that he's the savage. So my dad was a cavalry guy, and so that the natives who are there played a lot of parts in this movie, and then they chose these three actors on a particular night and took them and inducted them into the Sioux Nation. Mm-hmm. My dad, they did the pipe and the dance and exchange of gifts and the whole thing. The grandson of Sitting Bull was sitting over there. So my dad got an Indian name, Wichak Ilega. And it's one of the proudest moments of my memory of my father, that he was given that like around 1950. So Chuck Heston and my dad and this other lady were all made real Sioux Nation inductees at that thing.
For people who don't know.
That's not a shameful thing to me. I think that's rather wonderful.
Right, I agree. And what's sad too, when you're talking on a sports bet situation, is even the history of the team gets changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they don't refer them to as the Cleveland Indians anymore.
Right.
Even when
It
they were,
always was
yeah,
the
back when
Guardians.
Bob Feller was pitching for them, they were one of the greatest pitchers of all time, or Vic Wertz, or any of the great ball players. It's like they don't even say that Cleveland Indians played the San Francisco Giants in the 1954 World Series, and Willie Mays made a great catch in center field in the Polo Grounds. They can't even say it was Indian slugger Vic Wertz. They'll just say Cleveland outfielder Vic Wertz hit the ball that Willie Mays made this great catch on. You've probably seen it a million times.
Yeah.
Sure.
They don't even say Indians anymore.
Yeah.
No,
When they reference the team. This is what's frustrating, because they take the history away from. I mean, John Riggins of the Washington Redskins
right.
ran for a
Great
bunch of
runner.
touchdowns in one of the Super Bowl games, but
Right.
they don't even say the word Redskins anymore.
Matter of fact, the former Washington Redskins quarterback, Super Bowl champion, Mark Rippon, if you remember that? Mm-hmm. Okay, you remember him? I think it was the 80s or 70s. He came out and says we need to change back the name from the Redskins, back to the name to the Redskins. He came out and said that. Mm-hmm. And I have to look for that article, but he recently came out and said a lot of the original Redskin players from the 70s and 80s, they're totally anti this. This was, and I don't want to get too deep in this topic, because I realize it's sensitive, but you know enough about this, Bishop, that the people making these decisions are not the people of heritage. They are not the people. They're not the Native Americans. Most of the minorities, that they're having this taken from them. I mean, you can go really deep into this.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
saw a video on Aunt Jemima. The original Aunt Jemima, they changed the name because they thought that was derogatory.
Yeah.
It was not the black community that did that. If you
No.
know the story about her, she was a very successful businesswoman, one of the very first successful businesswomen of color in early 1900s. And her family is actually upset. I saw this documentary. Her family's upset that nobody talks about her anymore. The history is being wiped out.
It's like taking away the name Harriet Tubman, and you can't talk about that anymore, or Luther Burbank, because they're black people. Now, come on.
George Washington Carver,
Yeah.
'cause-
These names should have been grandfathered in, and just kept. And then in future, don't name somebody after. And if it's that sensitive, they just should have kept these names grandfathered in. But
Well, yeah.
know,
if you're
what can you
worried
do?
about Redskins having a shadow over the team, for heaven's sakes, your people went out and went crazy for this football team.
Mm-hmm.
They loved that team, and they would proudly wear the sign of two guns, a white calf, on their front, and go everywhere with the jackets and the symbols. It was a positive thing. You didn't
It
wear
was.
this. You didn't take
It's-
this name because you thought it was a derogatory
it's
thing.
always and I don't want to play left and right, conservative and liberal, but some of those on the left and those on the right do it as well. But it's just they go too far. It's man overboard, you know. And when Marlon Brando came in and chose not to accept the Academy Award because of the way Indians were depicted in movies. Okay, you're ready to go. But I mean, I looked at it and said, okay, at the time people were like, what an idiot, what a terrible thing. But I think if we look back on it, we might be able to say objectively that the way movies back in the 50s and 40s and 60s did not depict Indians in a very good way. And I thought it was very, The Searchers with John Wayne is a very controversial film, and probably rightfully so. And, but then instead of just saying, okay, they go too far with the names. Alfredo?
Well, it's interestingly enough, I watched too much stuff. I saw another documentary that the young woman, the Native American woman who went up for
No,
Marlon Brando was not Native American.
She's Hispanic. But
She's
still-
Hispanic. There's a problem there. I have that.
Yeah, maybe.
What would happen if somebody of another nationality got it, or race got it to represent an African American or a German or whatever it is? I mean, Jewish person.
Yeah, you're right, but still the point. I mean, you're right. I mean, historically speaking, you're right, Pastor. But the point I was trying to make is that Hollywood at the time made a good decision. They made a good point. I
Sure.
thought Brando made a good point, even though maybe the messenger wasn't the right.
She wasn't the right messenger.
Right, but still the message was still probably a good one. The point I
possibly.
was making was that maybe they go too far.
I'm going to solve this problem with a movie reference.
Okay, good.
Enemy Mine.
Yes.
Dennis Quaid
Louis
and
Gossett
Louis
Jr.
Gossett Jr. Did you ever see that movie?
I did not.
It's an alien. It's an alien and human kind of convergence thing. The alien is covered with scales. He looks reptilian. He looks really weird, and he talks funny. That's Louis Gossett Jr. He does a wonderful depiction of an alien. They're stranded on this desert little planet that's very hostile, and they have to learn to live together. They hate each other. They've been at war. It's all been Star Wars between them up until this point in the movie. And they're driven together by the need, and they learn each other's language, and they get into each other's culture. And there's even references to Christ in there. It is a beautiful movie, and it ultimately ends up sacrificially where the I won't tell you.
Give me the title again.
Enemy Mine. It's probably 30 years old or more.
That's early 80s.
Yeah.
Great movie. I also wanted to mention, just for people on our podcast, if you want to see an image of my dad in his basically his Native American.
All right.
Oh, there he is. Is that your dad?
That's my father, yeah.
All right, well, I'll tell you, send me that, and I'll put it on the podcast.
I already emailed it to you. Put it on the podcast. Go to the podcast. You can go to our...
He looks wild.
Yeah, he looks great. My dad looks great.
And send me a picture of your father. We'll make sure we get we'll put a shot at your father is a very famous actor. He played what was the soap opera?
His most it was General Hospital. He played Lee Baldwin,
The lawyer.
the lawyer.
And this is when General Hospital was really a big deal.
Yeah, in the 60s.
I'm not sure it
and
is now.
70s.
Yeah.
Well, it was the #1 daytime TV program for.
Was he there during the whole Luke and Laura?
Yeah. He was there
Mania?
35 years.
Yeah, my mom had a crush on him. He was a good-looking guy.
Every woman in America had a crush on him.
Good-looking guy. I mean, he was I remember. I was a kid, and I remember that.
Every waitress in America had a crush on my dad.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna we'll make sure we get a picture of both fathers.
All right.
And maybe I'll put a picture of my dad up there too while I'm at it.
Yeah, you
not?
should. That'd be great. I do want to mention one thing because I want to make sure we understand God's point of view on this, and I want to pull up this scripture. If you guys would just give me a minute here, there is a scripture that basically talks about. It's in Revelations that every tongue, every tribe, every nation will be in heaven worshiping the Lord. Now,
Right.
you know that one, right?
Right, sure.
So there is an identity that we do carry. Here it is, right here. It's basically a great multitude from every nation. This is Revelation 7:9. After this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes, all peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, with palm branches in their hands, praising and worshiping the Lord. So there is an identity that we do have on this earth that it appears that we're going to carry into the next life.
Sure.
Let me ask you: do you still root for the Washington team?
No, I'm mad at them, and I won't ski at Squaw Valley anymore because it's called the Palisades now.
That is hard to believe. Squaw Valley, the site of the 1960 Winter Olympic Games up near Lake Tahoe, they changed
remember.
its name.
Yeah, they changed it quite a few years ago, and actually the commissioner, I was looking up the article, the commissioner that did it said it's derogatory, and not only that, it's misogynist because it's after a woman, and she was not Native American.
Huh.
Oh well, that bothered me. I'm on a soapbox right now.
Oh man.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
Well-
Well, there's a unity that comes with us, and we can look at our different tribes. I'm proud of my Native American heritage.
Sure.
But on the other hand, I identify myself more as a child of God. I'm a child of God, and I pray that the unity that we all find isn't just based upon our surface, but it's based upon our belief in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and that's what you would pray for.
Yeah.
I want to thank both
We're all one.
Pastor Alfredo Romero of Rock of Life Fellowship and Bishop Peter Hansen of St. Augustine Anglican Church. Their service time is 10 o'clock on Sunday morning on Salem Street. If you're watching our podcast, you can see the location and time on your screen.
And
Thank
the
you,
pictures
gentlemen.
of our dads.
Yeah,
Pictures
no
of the
doubt.
dads as well. We'll show you those. Thanks again for joining us. So long, everybody.
Thank you.
Rebel